of sync, where you don't have to really hold on to your phone. You just press that number, and then your phone, the call comes in, and you can talk as much as you want. How do you see that with the sync system in the new cars?
I think that any new technology is going to challenge us in many ways. And I think we're going to see the challenges first with the younger ones, and it's going to really challenge us along the way. And I think that part of what happens is it gets accepted by a lot of people, and then we all feel like we have to accept it. It's the same thing that happens with any technology. They get accepted by the young people, and then everybody thinks they have to accept it.
So do you think it's safer than holding the phone and talking, or just talk? You don't have to hold on to anything.
You know, nobody's convincingly proved to me that holding the phone to your ear causes any problems. I mean, I've seen the research. It's ambiguous at best. Are you asking if it causes brain tumors or things like that?
No, not really. Is it safer?
Is it safer to talk like when you're driving?
Yes.
No.
Not on the phone with the sync system. I don't know if you're familiar
No.
with the sync system. Anybody familiar with the sync system?
Hands-free?
Yes.
Oh, no. It's not safer. Hands-free is not safer at all. It's not safer than holding the phone at all. All the research shows that they're both equally dangerous. Not as dangerous as texting while you drive, but hands-free or handheld are equally dangerous.
I've been talking to my husband through my sync, hands-free communication while driving through Reading, because there's certain areas in Reading that I'm not comfortable with, and that helps to distract me.
Okay.
And I can focus on the road, but my brain wants to look other places, you know? But when I'm talking to him, for some reason, it stays focused.
Well, and I would guess it's because, remember I said earlier that part of talking on the phone is you have to fill in the context. You know your husband's context.
Yes.
I mean, so you're not filling in much, and in fact, what you're probably getting is a lot of those chemicals released in your brain that calm you down, because he has obviously a calming influence on you, so that helps you actually. Knowing his context helps you calm down. That's what I would guess. But we could put you in a brain scanning machine and check it out.
As long as you're not going to charge my insurance, and I don't pay that 20%, we're good.
I promise I won't charge your insurance. I can't do that. Yes? Wait, I'm gonna walk my way up. It's much more fun to get closer anyway.
Is there any studies on socialization face-to-face in terms of anxiety or confrontation or, you know?
As opposed to,
Because texting is such a prevalent way of, just like your daughter example. To me, you know, to me it's more efficient just to pick up the phone, let's talk about and figure this out, than
Right.
send 30 texts.
as opposed to sending text back and forth and back and
Or
forth.
with preteens or teens and stuff, for example, going to a high school dance, you know, there's boys in the corner and the girls, you know, how do we communicate and come to each other and talk now? You know, are we just going to text and ask, do you want to dance?
Which they will, by the way. They will text across the room, do you want to dance? And they'll say, yes, I
It's like
do.
what happened in the good old days to talk to each other. Is there studies on that?
You know, there are a lot of studies going on now. And there's some really interesting books if you want to read some books on it. There's one called Alone Together, which is a book written by an MIT psychologist, Sherry Turkle, who talks about, she sees it as a major problem. She sees it as a tragically major problem that we're not communicating face-to-face. On the other hand, there's lots of research that shows that shy people bolster their confidence by communicating online, and that even people who aren't very good at giving empathetic responses to someone can practice that online and learn those skills and transfer them into the real world. We're doing a study right now actually where we're actually teaching people social skills but face-to-face or online, and then switching it to see if they can use those social skills in the opposite condition. I have no idea whether it's going to work or not. I mean, ideally what I'd like to see is that you can teach somebody social skills online and then have them demonstrate them face-to-face in the real world. I think it will happen. I think regardless of whether we think it's good or bad, it's going on. But I think bottom line, when you have kids, you have to make sure that they have time to learn face-to-face communication. Because part of face-to-face communication is picking up all of the subtle cues, like he's nodding his head a little back there, and I pick up, no, you didn't nod it much, but just a little, enough that I picked up the social cue. You can't get those social cues by typing, you know, a text message or even an email. And so I would say that you have to get your kids to learn at a young age how to pick up those social cues, that's critical. And I do a lot of speaking to parents, and I tell them that when your kids are young, they need 1 minute, for every minute of computer time or technology time or TV time, 5 minutes of human contact time, so they can learn naturally those skills of picking up context, picking up cues. Otherwise, you miss out on most of the important stuff of communication. Most of the stuff of communication that happens is nonverbal. It's all that, various facial expressions and body language and standing like this or whatever. We pick that up, and as kids we learn, oh yeah, when mommy's standing like this, she's pissed at me. But you can't see this on a text message. It just doesn't exist. Other questions, comments?
Actually, I have another question.
Go for it.
Yeah,
I'm up here anyway.
Kind of hogging the floor here, but I teach here at the university, and we've had all sorts of debates about, allowing text breaks and all these kind of things. And someone brought up in the conversation, I thought it was a good point. Are we just feeding an addiction by allowing the text? So, for example, an alcoholic, we wouldn't give them a drink break, right? So with texting, that was one of the arguments that was brought forth. So why are we giving them a break? Are we just feeding?
Do you want me to give you the answer?
No, nobody knew the answer.
I know the
We
answer.
didn't have you on hand.
Okay,
so.
I know the answer, and actually it's a really good question. So I'm gonna take the answer down here so everybody can hear and see. Those two terms, the two terms are very confusing. One is addiction, and the other is obsession, and we tend to use them interchangeably. We tend to say, I'm addicted to video games, or I'm obsessed with video games. I'm addicted to my phone, or I'm obsessed with my phone. In your brain, they're totally different. Addiction is doing an activity to get a squirt of dopamine in your brain that we've learned to interpret as pleasure. Obsession is there's already chemicals in your brain that make you anxious, and you're doing an activity to reduce those chemicals in your brain, mostly cortisol and things like that. So when you say the kids are addicted to their phones, they're not addicted to their phones. They're obsessed with their phones. So what's happening, and the reason why tech breaks work, by the way, is what's happening is if you don't let them check their phones, what happens in their brain is little dribbles of anxiety chemicals start leaking out, and they take over their thought process. So instead of being able to pay attention to your lecture, what they're doing is going, I wonder who texted me. I wonder if anybody's commented on my Facebook page. I wonder if I got to remember to do this. And they're just obsessing. Remember the movie with Jack Nicholson, As Good as It Gets, where he's has OCD and he's always unlocking and locking doors and washing his hands obsessively? That's what kids are like with their cell phones now. It's literally an obsession. That's why 75% of young kids check their phone every 15 minutes or less. They're not doing it to get pleasure. They're doing it to reduce the anxiety. So the answer to the faculty who don't believe it, the answer really is, if you don't let them do it, they're not going to pay attention to you, because they're going to be so overwhelmed with the anxiety that they can't do it. I mean, you can tell that in a movie theater. You're not supposed to use your phone in a movie theater. Go to a movie theater with young kids. They all use their phone in the middle of the movie because they can't stand to sit for more than 15 minutes or 20 minutes without checking in. It's a level of anxiety. I mean, we've got brain scans to show it. The anxiety chemicals just go nuts in their brain. And the longer you make them wait, the more chemicals they have in their brain. Yes?
So then, it's an obsessive compulsion, but what you're looking at on the internet, for instance, becomes an addiction because you do it over and over and you need to have it.
If you need to have it to get pleasure, it becomes an addiction. If you need to have it just so you don't feel nervous or anxious anymore, it's an obsession. You got the difference, yeah. And things like gambling is an addiction. You gamble, there's no anxiety about not gambling. You gamble to get pleasure out of winning. You drink. Drinking can be an addiction. You drink because you think you feel pleasure. Those are addictions. This is not, it's an obsession. Gaming is in general an addiction, yes. Gaming is absolutely an addiction because you do it and we watch gamers' brains and they get squirts of dopamine like that. And sadly, those squirts of dopamine stay and stay and stay and stay. They're literally, gamers go through forms of withdrawal, just like any other addiction. And that's also how you can tell. Addiction, you get to go through withdrawal. Yes?
I guess I'm just gonna sound like a baby boomer, and with agreeing kind of a little bit with, Greg's concern up here, we're fellow professors. you know, when's it gonna end, though? That we're just gonna just say, okay, this is gonna be all right, you only have a 15-minute attention span. And that's okay, and then, you know, the next generation is gonna be 10 minutes, or it's gonna be simultaneous.
Right. This is why I
Because of the
recommend.
anxiety.
Right. This is why I recommend that people do that tech break and start expanding the attention and focus. And actually, my next book is on focus and attention and what we need to be doing to do exactly that.
Okay.
We don't need to be caving into a short attention span, because then basically what we'll do is cave into a 3-minute attention span.
Right.
Because left to their own devices, 3 minutes is it.
Yeah.
We don't want to do that. We want to teach them how to lengthen that. I mean, I'd like to be able to figure out ways to get people to lengthen their attention span to a half hour, 45 minutes, or more. Most people have a 3 to 5 minute attention span at best, and then they move off and do something else.
Okay, that answers it.
Yeah, no, I think we have to be working at that, and I think that's the new major issue, I think, is how do we increase our focus? How do we get our kids, teach our kids and ourselves? Because trust me, I used to be able to read long New Yorker articles, for example. I get page 3 of a New Yorker article. When is this gonna end? There are 8 more pages left. I can't read it. I can't focus on it. And I know it's because I use a lot of texting and stuff that's shrinking my focus.
So you're saying that we need to use rewards in order to make ourselves get better trained to like concentrate?
We need to figure out ways to help us learn how to concentrate, yes.
Okay.
And I think that the key is to learn metacognition, to learn how your own individual brain works. If you know how your brain works and you know what distracts you, then that's half the battle of knowing how to help yourself concentrate. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, it's really about learning yourself. It's learning about metacognition. Yes?
Is there any way,
Wait, I'm going to move up because you have a very soft voice. I remember that.
is there any way that we can get copies of these slides
Yes.
somewhere?
Email me, and I'll throw them in a Dropbox and show you how to get it.
Oh, thanks.
What can I do?
How about if you Google me?
Okay.
Google me and you'll find my email, or I have cards in my pocket too. I have cards in my pocket if you want to go the easy old style route. But just Google
me.
Just Google me.
Like, I wish I could do that.
That's great.
When you've been around for 62 years and your career has spanned 37 years and you have 5 books, you can Google somebody.
Okay, I'll tell
You
someone
can
to
Google
me
somebody.
when I get there.
I am Googleable. Although I have to tell you, when you Google my name, you'll find that there are at least 3 other fairly famous Larry Rosens. One's a music producer, one's a famous attorney, and
I'll
I
put in
forget.
doc.
One's a doctor also.
Oh my gosh.
Other
I'm gonna
questions?
probably end up
Other
being a
questions?
That was great, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Woo!